You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Albert Liu, Managing Director of WB Wealth Management and host of the Power and Market Report. Welcome to the show, Albert.
It's very good to be here, Jim. Thank you.
People are aware that the U.S. has a tax law that allows them to go after any citizen, no matter where they live in the world, and ask for them to pay tax on whatever income they have made in that place. Other countries like Canada, Britain, and Australia do not do that with their citizens, believing that when people from other countries come here, they generate a lot of wealth and jobs with their investments and their mere presence. But now China has similar laws as the U.S., and now they're starting to pursue their citizens. And Albert, what have you heard about that, about their effort to get Chinese citizens to pay tax no matter where they live?
Well, I think I agree with you, except I would add that I think every country would really love to chase their citizens around the world and tax them. The USA has done this for a while, and they've really been accelerating these efforts lately. And what you see with China is they're no different than the US. The average Chinese person, for example, is just like the average American. They want to work hard, accumulate wealth, and better their lives, just like the ordinary American. Unfortunately, the Chinese government is just like the American government, and they want to tax. They want to expand their empire. Ultimately, they just want to control people and control territory. And so it's really no surprise now that they have sort of the industrial firepower to actually pull something like this off. It's no surprise that they're trying to do it. I wouldn't be surprised if Zimbabwe wanted to do the same thing, but they just don't have the industrial wherewithal to pull it off. But China does now, and so that's what they're doing.
Now, China has had this law allowing them to do this for quite some time. I think it was enacted back in the 80s. It's just with China's economy doing so well, growing in multiple digits every year, they didn't find any need for the extra revenue. But now their economy is slowed. Is it because it's slowed that they have to go after people to look for this tax?
I believe that's exactly what it is, Jim. And, the amazing thing is if you just think back, not too long ago, just a couple decades ago in the 90s, China was a poor place. The standard of living was horrible. So many people living in poverty. And they figured out that, like I said, if you give these people a little bit of freedom and economic incentive, fabulous things are going to happen. And so you see like hundreds of millions of people pulled out of poverty because of this fantastic economic engine. But the government did have plans. And so during that time, I believe this was in the early 90s, they sent teams of basically bureaucrats to other countries, the U.S. being one of them. Britain and Germany were the others. And I'm sure they would have sent someone to Japan if they didn't dislike the Japanese so much, but to study the tax system. And it's no surprise and no coincidence that they didn't send their bureaucrats to Singapore, Hong Kong, or the Cayman Islands. They're definitely interested in growing an empire. And not only that, within the USA, where do you think they went? They didn't go to Texas or New Hampshire. They went to California and New York. So basically, they've constructed their tax system to replicate what the U.S. has. And the IRS was very happy to help them out, giving them, a two-volume bound copy of the tax code and then all the IRS regulations. And you see here what's going on, that these governments, although they may quarrel, they really are on the same team. At the end of the day, they really want to help each other in the effort to collect taxes. It's kind of like professional wrestling. They may hurl insults and put on a good show, but at the end of the day, they're on the same team. Can you imagine if, for example, some people from Intel went to Qualcomm and asked them for all their secret documents? I don't think they'd get very far. But here, like I said, the IRS was very happy to help them out. And so what you have in China is basically a U.S.-style definition of income. And that's what went into their tax code when they issued it in 1993. And you mentioned that the sagging economy is a problem. It absolutely is. Think about what's happening here, for example, with oil dropping, with gas prices dropping. There's taxes tied to that, and governments are affected by that. And what we're going to see here is governments wanting to tax more to make up the difference, perhaps by raising fuel taxes or looking elsewhere. Well, that's exactly what's going on in China. You have a sagging economy. You also have the national government changing some of the relevant tax codes that make it more difficult for local governments to collect business taxes. And instead of what they used to have, they're going to get a sales tax or not a sales tax, but a value-added tax, I believe. And that's straining the budgets of local governments. And now they have a financial incentive to go out and try to crack down on people who are not reporting this foreign income. And of course, the Chinese government loves it because they get a cut of that as well. So absolutely is exactly what you said. It is the economy is going to be probably the main stimulus for this collection.
Yes, and in North America, municipalities have run into the same problem too. They can raise taxes through property tax and perhaps charging you fees to use the local swimming pool or skating rink. And beyond that, they don't really have a lot of ways to raise money, so why not go after the very people who have left and ask them to chip in and pay those taxes?
Right, and we see law enforcement actually getting into the mix as well. You see when budgets were really hurt after 2008, 2009, there was a lot of revenue generated from trafficking, policing the roads, for example, and issuing those types of fines. And so this is clearly about government budgets and not anything else. And the other thing that's unfortunate is that all of this snooping that the U.S. has been doing and all of the information that the government has been collecting is really going to help China in this effort, because I suspect that they're going to cooperate. And I'm not an expert in the FATCA legislation, but I'm just afraid that this is a very horrible precedent. And we're going to see, like I said, every country would love to have this, would love to follow their citizens around all over the globe and milk them. And this is a horrible precedent, and I'm afraid that more and more countries are going to be looking at this.
Do we have any idea how many Chinese citizens living overseas might be affected by this?
I really don't. I don't have any particular information there. But what is interesting is China doesn't recognize dual citizenship. So that is one difference between how this policy might affect their ability to collect taxes. Because if someone from China moves abroad and they accept citizenship in another country, they automatically lose their Chinese passport. And so it's kind of a simple process, and that's a very simple way for people from China to, if they want to anyway, to perhaps just walk away from this problem altogether. In fact, you have no choice. If you accept Canadian citizenship, you're going to lose your Chinese citizenship. That's what I've been told. So that is a very different situation from your average American, for example, who has to explicitly renounce his citizenship and go through a process to get out of paying these taxes. It's the people who are in the U.S., for example, working. They're on work visas. They have green cards. Those people will be affected, and there's quite a few of them. I don't have numbers on this, but there are quite a few working, for example, in the high tech industry. Those people will all be affected. And the bad thing for us here in North America is that the Chinese government's gain is actually our loss. It's in that sense, it is a zero-sum game. The money that's come over here and gone into, for example, real estate and all of that wonderful retail spending, some of that might go away. Basically, that is directly. The Chinese government would consider that a revenue loss for them. So, unfortunately, like I said, their gain will be our loss. So this is not very good at all.
We'll have more with Albert Liu right after this.
More and more people are looking to the internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Albert Liu. Managing Director of WB Wealth Management and host of the Power and Market Report. Albert, there's a new system that's being put into place around the world that tracks bank accounts, joins them all together. It's the internal data service that the U.S. government has set up, and it affects or has control or influence with something like 1,450,000 banks, and the numbers are growing every day. So no matter what you do with your money, if it's in a banking institution anywhere on the planet, people are finding out where it is. Is this a frightening thought for people who may say or think that their money is their money and won't be accessible to their government?
It certainly is, and I think that you just have to accept the new reality. Every couple of months, it seems, something like this comes out, and privacy, basically look at it as being like the Titanic. It hit an iceberg a long time ago, and it's just been going down. Its fate is sealed. Privacy is gone. Even if you talk to a Swiss banker, or I've spoken with a former Swiss banker who said, look, it's just completely gone. So don't even bother. And that's how I feel about this. This is just the latest development and something that's been going on for quite a while. And so the information collection has unfortunate consequences for all of us. And one of them is privacy is gone. But another thing is, as you and I talked about earlier, off the air, is that governments can do other things with this information too. So this is really not good, and there's not much more I can say about that other than there's other countries that are going to be facing financial stress, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be looking at what the U.S. and now China are doing in terms of being very aggressive with their tax collection. And offhand, Australia comes to mind, France comes to mind, Britain. They have wealthy and affluent expatriates all over the place, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they were watching these developments very closely.
Sure, I think of countries like Greece, Italy, Ireland. They also have huge expatriate populations that somehow could be affected by it as well. Right.
And, the U.S. has been doing this for quite a while, and they've become very aggressive lately. I think now that China is following suit, we'll see how it goes for them. Their policy is a little bit different. And so whereas the U.S. allows a pretty large annual exemption of foreign income, you still have to file, but you can make almost $100,000 a year and not pay tax. With the Chinese, it's only $219 per month overseas. And so we'll see what happens. There's a lot of people that are going to be, I guess, delinquent on their taxes. And I would suspect, just as the case with the U.S., the Chinese government will try to enforce some very high-profile cases, perhaps with very severe penalties, to let all of their citizens know that this is for real, and then they're going to come after them.
Albert, thank you very much for being on our show.
It's my pleasure, Jim. Thank you very much.
My guest has been Albert Liu, Managing Director of WB Wealth Management and host of the Power and Market Report. His contact information is on his website, albertkliu.com. You're listening to HoweStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Comments or questions for the show can be sent to info@HoweStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HoweStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HoweStreet.com radio is a production of HoweStreet Media Incorporated.